I can create this tool. There's so many people. I'll make X money in 1 year. That never worked. Anything which got started with a true sort of interest, passion, idea, which is not allowing you to sleep, they will always work. Tinkering should never stop, by the way. I've built like hundreds of products, tools in my sort of free time. Even today, I'm coding on, sometimes I'm coding on the weekends. So tinkering should never stop. Otherwise, you will run out of ideas. Most of us even don't know how to reply when someone compliments you. Right? If I tell you like, hey, your shirt is good, you won't have the answer. That's where the international market and the India products differ. We always talk about features. We never talk about solutions. So we always try to solve problems with money, but it's never that. It will take the human hours. It will take the human emotions to play the actual role.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Startup Operator Podcast. I'm Roshan Karyappa. My guest today is Gaurav Sharma, who is the founder and CEO of SaaSLabs. Gaurav is an experienced entrepreneur. He's been building for about 15 plus years. He's had a couple of exits before. And in this conversation, I talked to him about building and scaling a SaaS company. So we split this conversation into 4 different parts. The first part we talk about is ambition of building a $100 million plus company and what efforts and investments go into that. The second, we talk about product, how to build a successful product, what frameworks or principles you should use. The third is what he calls a distribution first mindset, what channels work, when and how. And the fourth is the people and the personal aspect of things, how he's managing a cross-functional, cross-border team at this point of time, and what are those things he is learning for the next leg of the journey. This was a fascinating conversation with a very experienced entrepreneur, and I'm sure that there are a lot of insights in here that could be useful to you. So let's get started on this episode of the Startup Operator Podcast with Gaurav Sharma. Hey Gaurav, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome. So, we got talking at Upeka, and one thing that kind of intrigued me is that you've been a builder for the last maybe like 15 years, right? I mean, right out of college, you've been building stuff, B2C, B2B, so on and so forth. And I think there are a couple of different types of builders' mindsets. One is the tinkerer, like karke dekhte hain, I mean, kya hoga, right? And the second is like the more strategic, pick a market, pick a problem, pick a specific role, and kind of solve for that, right? Figure out the distribution first before like actually doing anything. I think you've done both, right? Perhaps, evolved from one to another, right? If you can talk about both these types of mindsets of building and where you are at this point.
Sure. I started building when I was, I think, in 9th standard in school. That's when I picked up programming. And that's when that whole tinkering piece started. There were a few stories I've written about this thing a lot of times, which is like Sabir Bhatia story inspired. I was inspired by like Sabir Bhatia selling his company for insane amount of money, which I didn't know how much it is.
It was about what, 50 million?
400 million.
Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
Yeah. Right. So
I forgot Microsoft actually paid
at that time
for.
And it was just a 1-year-old company. Obviously, at that age, I didn't know how much 400 million means, but it was definitely a huge amount of money, right? Because my dad was in Air Force, staying in this whole Air Force quarters and all that. I've not seen that kind of. I didn't even know that much money even exists in the world, right? So that was how naive I was. But I picked up programming because of that, and I started tinkering. And I was like, I also want to do this thing. I also want to make money and have a good life or XYZ. I mean, because that's how you start normally when you start as a kid. Started with blogging, SEO, everything possible so that I can make some Google AdSense money. Made some money, so that was a validation. My parents started accepting me. Okay, like this guy is like spending whole night till morning 6 a.m. doing something on computer. When the checks started coming in, they're like, okay, he's doing something fine. He's not just wasting his time on internet. Like when you grow up, you start doing. So that started happening, and then I think first legit mindset of building something long term as a business. I mean, that actually happened during college. I started a virtual stock exchange software, and we got a customer in US, a blogger, a financial blogger. He paid us like 2 lakh rupees to run a banner on our sort of this software that we built. And 2 lakh rupees for
It's a
a
lot of
call,
cash.
yeah, that's a lot of money. And I still remember how I sold him this whole ad thing on our sort of platform. I was G chatting with him. G talk used to happen that time.
Yeah.
So I was G chatting with him. Like, dude, like, yeah, we are getting 80,000 students playing this every day. They'll go to your blog XYZ. I pitched it, sold it on the G chat, sent him the PayPal ID. He sent me the money. It was crazy, right? And that gave me this confidence that after getting a job in investment banking after college, I was confident enough to leave that job in 3 months, move to Bangalore, and take that fully as a full time thing. So I think that was first time I thought about something as a full time, more planned way of doing it. Over time, you build muscle. Tinkering should never stop. By the way, like I've built like hundreds of products, tools in my sort of free time. Even today, like sometimes I'm coding on the weekends. So tinkering should never stop. Otherwise, you will run out of ideas.
Yeah. No, I mean, I find actually sadly that there's a lot less tinkering these days, right? Because I think people are more sophisticated. They start like figuring out
Yeah.
the money before they start building, which is a good thing, I think,
Yeah.
overall. But that tinkering, right?
Yeah.
I think that is, essential. So we had Vimal, who is the founder of JustPay, on the podcast. And, there's a very popular app in Bangalore called Namma Yatri, which helps book auto rides, right? And they're doing a lot of
Rides, yeah.
rides, right? I mean, they're probably doing, what was it? I think 10,000 rides or something a day, probably
It's
more.
crazy.
Right? And it was built as a side project,
Exactly.
right? So
Yeah, absolutely. I think no, I think money can be a superficial reason for some of the people. Even for me, if I sort of dig deep, I think that whole magic that you used to see when you're coding something,
yeah,
and someone who doesn't know you he start using it in US somewhere,
right.
and that's the real magic. That's where the thrill comes from.
Yeah.
And I think this whole money piece, the fame piece, and everything is all byproduct. So any single product or project that I started with a money plan in my mind, that never worked. I was like, I can create this tool. There's so many people. I'll make X money in 1 year. That never worked. Anything which got started with a true sort of interest, passion, idea, which is not allowing you to sleep, they will always work. Given that the market is there in XYZ. But I think that purity of thought when you're starting something,
Yeah.
it's mandatory.
Yeah. No, I think that's like is something that what this guy Rick Rubin, he's a producer, right? He says the same thing, that when I'm composing music or whatever, I just make for myself.
Yeah.
It's an audience of one. If I'm completely kicked about something, it finds an audience. It becomes a hit or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't start with a TG in mind and start planning backwards. And then there is this whole dichotomy of like, okay, should you bootstrap? Should you go for raising venture capital, so on and so forth. Again, in the old days, I don't think venture was so much of an option.
Yeah.
Right. From there to now, right? I mean, now maybe after correction, it's been a little more tempered. But then there was a time in 21 or something where people were first thinking of like, how do I raise money, right? Before I even look at product or distribution or any of those things.
Yeah.
Right. But do you see that as a dichotomy, or do you see that like each has its own place depending on what the market is?
I mean, it depends founder to founder, but I think what I've learned, or this is something I tell every single person, even if so a lot of people reach out to me for angel investment and everything, my first answer normally is that don't raise the money. Especially when you're doing software business, right? Obviously, if you're setting up a factory, then you need money, but we are talking about software here, and I'm a very strong believer, and I always tell people that if raising money is the way for your business to sustain or remain alive, then there's no point doing it. I always tell people to bootstrap as much as possible, and you should raise money only once you have a machine where you can put $1 and that machine generates more dollar for you. If you don't have that machine, that engine, then raising money will be very cool for next couple of days. You'll be on TechCrunch and XYZ, but that pressure of money won't be good. Right? So, and also the whole dilution piece, right? I mean, why to dilute your equity? It's so important. to continue to carry your sort of equity with you.
Yeah.
Because in our case, like for example, in SaaSLabs case, we waited till $5-6 million ARR, and because of that, we were able to raise $56+ million with very little dilution. So I'm still a majority owner of the business. I still own majority seats on the board. So as a founder, as a product thinker, as a main product person of the company, I still have that independence, that fun of going to work every day and doing what I like the best, right? So yeah, so I think now it's becoming more. Now people are getting it a bit here and there because media is talking about it here and there that hey, funding is not that cool. But earlier, I think it was a period of what 2015 to 2021, 22 when it was everything was a funding.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you spoke about is so important, right? Which is founders retaining some amount of optionality as you scale.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think people have this bizarre notion that if I raise like 30 million, it's going to come and sit in my bank, and I'm going to become rich
Yep.
the next day,
Yep.
right? But it is not at all like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yes, there are some secondaries and everything, but those are only when you raise growth rounds,
Yeah.
right? And you really have to earn
Yeah.
those as well, right? So being sensible about how much you raise, when you raise, and how much you dilute is make or break.
Yeah. No, I can tell you a couple of stories here. Like, I mean, if you want to be rich, I think bootstrapping is best. If you really want to be like liquid, rich, right?
Yeah.
I
You want a
think-
net cash.
Yeah, like so that you can live a good life. And that was happening with me also. And that was one of the triggers for me to raise capital actually. Because we were making so much money. We were like 50% profitable at 5-6 million ARR.
Yeah.
And I was in Noida. For a Noida, 100% owner of the
with the
business,
farmhouse.
right? With a farmhouse, with all the cars I want, right? And everything. I felt that now we are at a position where I think I will become complacent with all this thing coming in, and I'll sort of lose my track of taking this company public and XYZ. That was a trigger for us to raise a first round of capital, and that's when I replied to one of the pitches that we were getting from VCs that okay, let's talk. And we started getting a lot of acquisition offers, and I didn't want to sell, so that's a different thing altogether. So yeah, so whenever whenever a first time founder approaches me that hey, what should I do, bootstrap or not to bootstrap, my first question like what are you optimizing for? Like you want to make 30-40 crores in your life and chill and give your parents and partner and everyone good life? Bootstrap, take it to $2-3 million, slog for next 4 years, 5 years, and you get the outcome. But if you really want to do something really, really big, then okay, you can go for VC funding, but only if you have the engine. First day thing cannot be fundraising. It cannot be. It's always going to backfire.
So what is your current motivation? You want to build a large company, right? But what kind of company is that going to be? And
Sure.
do you have some benchmarks in mind
Sure.
as to I want it to be like X or Y thing?
Yeah. So yeah, I think in my case, like I built and sold 2 companies before SaaSLabs, right? So when I was starting SaaSLabs, it was never about money per se. It was more about few things on my checklist. Like I really want to build something that I'm not going to sell. I really want to build and see how it is to take a company public. So all those big sort of goals I in mind, because I'm committing 30-40 years to it. Like I've already sold 2 companies and I really want to see the magic of compounding. And if you look at the role models here, like from the product side of things, from the product strategy and industry strategy side, Adobe, Atlassian are some of these companies that I really admire, and this is how we started our whole product strategy and everything. From longevity and the business point of view, I think SDFC started falling these days, but normally when we started, SDFC was like one of those things like compounding. I think build something, for example, InfoEdge, right? Naukri.com went public at 860 crores and now it's about 60,000 crores, right? I mean, that's an amazing story.
Crazy, yeah.
You make a lot of people money. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another. So again, I was telling you about the digging deep and finding a real reason. So when I moved to US 2011, 2012 and sold a company and built another company, sold it again. You know what the biggest change that came to my family's life or my life? It was like me, myself or my parents started buying things without looking at price tags, like buying clothes. Like it's such a small middle class to decent middle class sort of jump. just so subtle, but it's so important. So when I was moving back from US to India, I was carrying this sort of idea or dream that can I repeat this for next 20, 30, 40 people, right? Everything other than that, like Atlassian, SDFC, I mean, this is all wrapper on top of it. I think the underlying core passion piece is that how can I make same stories with other people as well, right? So I think that was a pretty important driving factor. Again, this is something I found out when I started digging deep, like why I'm doing this thing, right? But at times, I mean, it happens to founders all the time. You're always kind of lonely, so you start thinking these things at times. So there was one day I was thinking like, why I'm doing this thing. So that's how like it came to me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think not a lot of founders spend time thinking about that, right? I mean, you're an experienced guy. I mean, you've
Yeah.
had a couple of exits before.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people think about their intrinsic motivation, right?
Yeah.
Why startup? Why do any of these things?
Yeah.
It's pretty much like the classic case of, okay, you found a problem to solve, you go and build something for it. And then you realize you have people around you, you have a company, and then you have to manage the absolute hell that comes with that.
It's not
right?
easy.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It never gets easy.
Yeah.
I was thinking like at 14, so we were a bootstrap company hiring freshers from college and everything, and then we got like 14 million, then we got $42 million. And with every step, I was like, okay, now we are $20 million company, now we are X $1 million company, and now we have these leaders coming in. Probably my life will be easier. Dude, it never gets easier. It never ever gets easier.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part. Like, not everyone can be an entrepreneur, obviously, for the same reason.
Yeah.
And what's really important for everyone trying to get into entrepreneurship is to understand and buy that. This is going to happen. I'm not talking that, hey, you have to give up your work-life balance. I'm totally in favor of that. But I think it's always front-loaded. The whole work piece is very front-loaded. And it's now your job as a founder or a CEO of the company to make sure how you take you outside of the business. How can you work on the business rather than in the business? So that's another one of those, I mean, it's off topic, but I just really wanted to just bring that point forward.
No, that's interesting. You know, we had a whole debate recently about this. Mr. Narayan Murthy's remark
70
on
hours.
70 hours and so on, right? I mean, and I was like, look, I mean, if that is your life, then you pick that, right? I mean, you can't get the world to bend to your lifestyle and work-life balance and whatnot. The world is what it is, right? I mean, you pick the path you want to kind of pursue.
I mean, if you ask my colleagues or family members, I mean, they'll say, yes, I also do the same. But I think okay, so if you're putting in 70 hours a week, then also make sure that those 70 hours are making some difference.
Quality, right? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If those 70 hours are making some difference, moving your company forward, bringing some momentum in, improving your TAM, creating opportunities for your business, and you're also not feeling the burnt of it. You're enjoying it. You're not doing it just because you have to do, because there's so many fires to fight. Then I think it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
But if you're slogging just for the sake of it, and nothing is moving, then you have to just take a break.
Yeah.
Figure out the strategy and then go back again. Maybe work a bit less and figure out how can I work less.
Yeah.
That'll give you the answers.
Yeah. No, I think if you're not motivated by the work, and if more importantly, if you don't have skin in the game, right, then obviously the figure out a strategy to work the least amount of hours and get the most done, right?
That's what should optimize for.
Absolutely.
Like I tell everyone who is, for example, I mean, your job is to kill your job, basically. Right? Yeah. For example, I tell my customer support folks as well, like, your job is to kill your job. Product people, your job is to kill customer support's job. Right? Make such an amazing product that you don't get any tickets.
Right.
So for every leader, I mean, figure out how can you remove yourself from the job itself.
Right.
And that will help you, enable you to run the business better, run the function better.
Right. One of the consequences of the motivation that you have, which is to build a large company, right, that could potentially list and so on, is the fact that you are multi-product, right? Now, I mean, that's like on paper it looks really
Yeah.
interesting, and it looks simple,
Yeah.
right? I won't say easy, but it looks simple for sure, right? I mean, you pick different
Yeah.
markets, different products, you hedge on what works and so on, you double down on your winners, and you have a way of like figuring out what works across, you share teams and all of that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it is absolutely not that
Yeah. It's not easy.
easy to execute, right?
Absolutely.
But I just want to, take a step back and think about how you structured the company to sort of enable that vision, right? Like a multi-product company vision. So how did you start putting that pieces together?
Yeah. So I'll tell you like why the multi-product thing came in first place, right? So when I was starting SaaSLabs, again, one of those things, thinking about things, I figured that I get bored very easily, and probably that's why I'm selling the companies. Like I'm always writing code, building new things. There's so many ideas I have. So I really wanted to have a single. So if I want to build something which is long term, I have to also make sure and optimize for my boredom as well. Like I should not get bored,
Right.
and I will not get bored. If I'm doing a lot of new things. Now I've obviously matured over a period of time, but that time I was like, how can I not get bored? Let's build a lot of stuff in the same house. So that was the first starting point. Like, okay, we'll build a lot of products, and also in the early days, I was pretty sure that we're not going to raise money. And one of the things was like, okay, let's create a company in a way. Normally, VCs never liked multi-product companies. So we're like, okay, so these two things are solving my problems. I don't want to raise money, and I don't want to get bored. So that was a multi-product play. That's how it happened. Uh, but eventually, like we started liking it, and I think like how to organize. So we basically, so you always have to have a very a star product with you. That's very important, which is a cash cow. And then we had something like a Y Combinator like program within our company where we used to give $20,000, $30,000 of a grant to our senior engineer to work on different ideas, something like Google, where you can work on different things on the side, and you can use that $20,000, $30,000 for that product, whatever you're building. So it can be SEO, it can be design, XYZ. $20,000 is a game. So that's the program we started running. So our first product, which sort of picked up and become $1 million sort of product, the second product, HelpWise, that came through that program. So what happened? HelpWise became a profitable business itself. So today it's doing roughly something around $1 million, but it's like through and through profitable. It has a team of about 12 people, engineers, one product, shared design. Ankita is running that product. She's part of the CEO's office. So again, kind of a shared. She also helps with some other stuff, but she's kind of running the show there at HelpWise. So so some of the functions in your team, in your business, work like agencies. For example, your CEO's office is like a strategy kind of agency. It's like a kind of an internal McKinsey for you, where it can help solve different problems. Similarly, marketing can be that agency. Like it can help you with content, it can help you with XYZ stuff. What's really important is that how can you put boundaries on the kind of time you have to invest. For example, Just Call, our first main product, which is doing tens of millions of dollars, 90% of the human resource goes towards Just Call, and 10% goes to the other sort of places, right? So it's a function of opportunity and where these businesses are.
Right.
Sharing can only happen with certain functions. For example, hiring, right? I mean, hiring is a shared function again. Like people will hire for HelpWise, they'll hire for Just Call. So that's a shared resource again. So you have these bunch of functions which are shared, and then you have dedicated. For example, engineers, they are dedicated. If we need some bandwidth, it's like AWS. Like you can get more engineers for a couple of days from Just Call and use it on HelpWise. That can work out.
Interesting. You mentioned CEO's office, right? And I think that's. I think over the last 4 or 5 years, it's become a little more common to see a founder's office, to hire a chief of staff, and so on and so forth, right? But I mean, when you started building this out, right, what was the thought process, and how did you hire these folks? What do they do today?
Yeah. No, I think I definitely cannot. I mean, I thank the CEO's office big time for all the growth we have seen over a period of time. So we started the CEO's office just after our Series A funding. Funny story there, like, so when you move from bootstrap to funded company, you have this whole due diligence that happens during fundraise, and it was like an eye opener for me. Like, dude, like you have to have, what is MIS, like what are all those things, right? There's so many
Yeah.
compliances you have to follow. There's so many things I didn't know.
Right.
Even today, I don't know a lot of things. So I wanted to firstly plug that. I wanted to make sure that, hey, if I'm raising money from someone, the company should be absolutely compliant and absolutely great with investor relations. So one was that. The second was like, I know like I'm more of a more of a hunch based, creative, impulsive programmer kind of person. I hate Excel myself. So but the business is growing and someone has to have control over numbers. Someone has to give me should challenge me on some of those things where I'm just taking hunch based decisions. The business is becoming bigger. I cannot, the risks I'm taking will come at a higher cost now. So I wanted a muscle where people are good with numbers, people are good with analysis, um, and I'm not spending my time there. And that's not my strength area, anyways. So I figured that these are some of these things which will stop the company from having that capabilities, which I don't have. So I figured some of these things, and that's how we started hiring people in our CEO's office.
Nice.
So now we have like the whole data, the whole MIS piece, strategy piece, M&A piece, a lot of special projects. For example, if you're building something, if a leader is leaving off of some function, then someone from CEO's office can cover up for that person till we hire someone else. Uh, so it's like a Swiss knife kind of team which is great at numbers, and it's a very neutral team. So the job of the CEO's office is to be very neutral. You cannot favor anyone. It's all numbers. It's all proper analysis. So if a function leader is telling me that I am wrong, then that's fine. And the CEO, if CEO's office is backing that, then that's fine. That's what brings that neutrality in the whole company, and that sort of keeps things balanced.
Yeah. I think what I've realized, especially over the last maybe 3 years, is how much of operational rigor there is to actually running a business,
Yep.
right? Because we start off as product guys,
Yep.
and we're just like, hey, customers seem to be happy, they seem to be paying us, right?
Yep.
I mean, what else is there to like really bother about?
Yeah.
But then there is someone looking at all these margins and where we are investing engineers and so on and so
Exactly.
forth, and quantifying the shit out of everything, right?
Yeah.
Which is like a huge value, I think.
Yeah.
And especially to balance that product mindset,
Yeah.
which you said, like, I mean, just run with your intuition and hunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a big difference. I mean, there's a big difference between spending and expenses versus investment. Because most of us founders come from a middle class background without any even credit cards or any risk taken ever in our life financially.
Yeah.
Which is kind of different in US. People take risks and everything from the early age itself.
Yeah.
Our relation with money is always not that great. Like
Yeah.
on Diwali getting 100 rupees, and that's, you cannot take a big risk with that, right? So and when you're coming from a bootstrap mentality where you're like very profitable and XYZ, and then you're coming to a funded company where you have to press the pedal and grow faster, you have to build a very special muscle called investment. How to look at expenses as investment, how to differentiate between the two. Because at times, my fear at times, I mean, these days is that we are profitable again, so we are generating a lot of cash. We already have the Series B money in the bank, so we have a lot of money with us to invest. So at times, my fear is that, am I under investing in some places? That's one of my fears these days. Like, what are some of those places I'm under investing? I'm asking questions in the team itself. So I think building that muscle of investment, spending money as investment is very important, which some founders pick it up really well, which can't make the differentiation between expenses and investments, and they sort of run out of money. So I think that's something I'm obviously trying to learn.
Right.
But you talked about operational piece, right? I'll tell you, like when we were bootstrapping the business, we didn't even have a finance person full time. We had my CA used to do all these things, because my understanding was that in SaaS business you have like 4 expense items, like server costs, salaries, office, and Stripe fees. These are the 4 expenses, and there is this one income, and that's it. But now at this scale, I mean, we have like 6-7 people in finance team. We have a proper ops team for different functions. Man, it's difficult. It's not easy. So I salute all the operators out there
Yeah.
who are killing it with all the ops work.
Yeah. even with all of this setup, right, balancing, new ideas, right, or R&D, let's call it,
Yeah.
and expanding,
Yeah.
like going deep within whatever is already working,
Yeah.
it must not be a straightforward thing, right? So do you have like a framework or some set of principles that helps you decide what to do and when?
Yeah, I mean that's a very important job of a CEO, or the person who's running the company, to never run out of money, to keep on increasing the time of the business, um, to keep on talking to the customers. I think that's very important. From the ideas perspective, like I think talking to customers is really important, because customers gonna tell you like, hey, what's happening. For example, this whole AI thing, right? I mean, we started building this whole AI suite 3 years back before this whole ChatGPT piece, right? And recently I started talking to a lot of our CEOs of a lot of our customers, and for most of the customers, AI is still a FOMO piece, right? And we all of the SaaS companies are building things around AI, plugging in, doing all that stuff. But are the customers ready yet? What kind of things they're looking for? What are their expectations from AI? So I think, so taking out time for customers is very important, because in the early days you have less customers, you can take out time, and that's how you grow from 0 to 1. But what's important is like once you're a grown company, that's when it's very important to talk to your customer. So I think that's one. R&D piece, it's also your role to tell your leaders or have this culture of innovation and failing fast, and it's okay to fail and all that thing, and pushing people to think out of the box is really important. Keep on telling that. I think one biggest learning for me over the period of time, as we have grown from me single person opening the office to almost 300 plus people now, is like how important communication is. How to keep on communicating again and again that, hey, we cannot just be a table stake matching features product. We have to have some magic in our products. You have to keep on telling that. You have to review, you have to show interest in a product with your engineering team. So every month I go in the night time, I go on customer support chats, like at least once a month, just to understand what people are complaining or asking about. And I ask every single team member in the company to have access to the customers. So I think that's really important from the R&D sort of piece, listening to the customers.
Yeah. It's amazing, right? Like how much of your product roadmap could actually be defined by your customers.
Absolutely.
I mean, they'll just tell you what you need to build, right?
Yeah.
They'll tell you what they'll pay for.
Yeah.
And still you see so little of that in the market out there in some sense, right? And when you listen to them often enough, that's when I think you earn the right to take that next leap also in terms of your product thinking itself,
Yeah.
and building that thing which could be like a, like a highlight feature or a highlight product as such. So let's talk about your process of going from idea to product to, like, again, scaled market as such, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you like to build around a job function, a job role,
Yeah,
right? So sales, for example, you build, call IQ and so on and so forth, right? Is that thinking going to continue? And also, like, what are some pros and cons of doing that? One thing is, you mentioned increasing TAM, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more straightforward when you're doing that. You just basically look at that person and just like try to automate or streamline everything that they do in their workday.
Yeah.
That is one easy way of like thinking about it. But any other nuances that you can talk about?
Sure. Yeah, I think the first one is very important. The whole focus on the job role or a persona, I can say. Like I now normally call it job role so that it becomes more focused. Like I know like what an SDR will do, what a BDR will do, or AE will do, or a customer support person. So our strategy basically is like, so 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 this is how I think about it. Like to reach $100 million, we need to have about 80,000 agents paying us about $100 a month each, right? Today, let's say we have about 30,000, 40,000 agents, and they're paying us about $70, $80. So I have to increase my number of agents, and I have to increase per seat amount
Realization.
that they pay me, right? So that's a fundamental thinking. Like that's how the math works for $100 million. So, and there again on the product thinking, there are three ways to think about it. One is like, what can I do from the product side so that I can acquire more customers? What can I do from the product side so that I can retain and expand my customers? And third is, what can I do from the innovation point of view? Like what how can I bring differentiator in the market so that people sort of stay with us. Uh, and then there's a whole repository of customer requests, right? So we do a lot of brainstorming around customer request. Customer support team also gives us a download on like what are the top queries or requests for the week, for the month, and all those things, right? So I think that's one. I strongly believe that in product you should not be 100% focused on metrics and numbers and all those things. That whole creativity and magic piece is very, very important. um, for example, what happens like when you're comparing your product with some other competitor, you'll be like, this person gives that feature, so I should also have this feature, and we just we call it inspired or just copy, like we just make the same, right? What we do internally is we push our folks to rethink the solution once. Is there a different way we can do this solution? Because we have seen like a lot of these magics that we have created in our product. Those are one of those retention drivers for us for some of our products. I mean, that brings a differentiator, that brings those things, right? Two other things that I think about. So I think about this is something I was actually writing a post on. Like it is about like two types of moat for retaining a customer from the product side. One is called I call it citizenship. One I call it religion, right? So citizenship is like, for example, Stripe. It charges you for every single activity that you're doing, and that's an amazing product model, product feature, product functionality, and pricing model, right? So you can build a product which can plug into your customers' use case, and they get charged only when they're making something. So if you can think about doing something around your product from that functionality, you will make money, and also they won't get sort of feel bad about it. The other one is called religion, where they just trust you like anything. So you have to figure out what is that religion piece that you can bring into it. For example, Amazon versus Flipkart. Like even if Flipkart gives me 50% discount on Apple iPhone, I mean, I'll still go to Amazon, right?
Yeah.
So what can you do from the trust building point of view?
Right.
A lot of time, a lot of churn happens, or a lot of people leave your business because of the perception around your product. So we always think a lot about trust building and perception building
Yeah.
around the product. So there are some of these buckets where we look at.
I think we forget how much of an emotional decision even buying SaaS is, right?
It is.
Why you buy one thing versus another.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do all of the tables and like put the pros and cons on either side for each of these things, but you kind of go with whatever you have a comfort feeling with, right? Ultimately, and this is whether why you use Slack versus Teams, or whether you use any of these things, right?
No, I'm very particular about the copy.
Yeah.
Of the buttons, of the banners, of the error messages. I normally tell people that product should behave rather than work. It should behave. I mean, the human is using that, so it should like an extension to that, your extension, right? So the for example, next button, right? Like, so I'm very particular to copy, and I've seen in my previous sort of things that I've done. Copy has made a lot of difference for me, be it the product going viral or anything happening or word of mouth.
Yeah.
That copy of the email, the CTA, I'm so particular about that. I don't know, a lot of people hate me in my company for that maybe. Like I keep on nagging people for that.
I don't know if you remember the early days of Rails, right? Twitter was one of the first few platforms that was on Rails, and you remember the fail whale?
Fail whale.
Yeah, I mean, people would put up with that stuff because it looked cute and everything. Of course, it would get annoying after a while, but then that became a thing, right?
Yeah.
Versus just seeing HTTP error or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's copy. I think. Copy and in general communication, you can just never underestimate the power of it.
Yeah, a lot of people write in their footer like made with love in LA, Delhi, whatever.
Yeah.
But majority don't. Majority people don't build those things with love. They build through PRDs and stuff. It should be built with love.
Yeah.
They should think, how can I make this person's life more easier, less clicks?
Yeah.
He or she feels good about the button, even like the whole message of the button.
Yeah.
So I get confused about like what should the button text be like. Get started now for free trial, try me now for free, like all those things like this. So, and A/B testing is not the answer to that. You should also feel it.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's very interesting.
Okay, we've spoken about investment in resources, right? Where do you allocate your resources? We've spoken fair bit over the product side of things. Let's talk about distribution.
Yeah,
One of the things you mentioned is that you have a distribution first mindset now, at least,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
In terms of, okay, what do you think will be the channel where I can
yeah,
acquire users for
yeah,
this? Now, in the early days, you could perhaps, considering that you have a $0 budget, you could work the SEO and then wait 3 months or 4 months before it really started, like giving you some
yeah,
inbound and so
yeah,
on and so forth, right? But now, obviously, you have money and you have people, and I think you have a greater intuition on where the product and market is,
yeah,
right? So, how has that distribution thing evolved?
yeah,
What are your principles on distribution right now?
yeah. No, I think distribution is super important, super duper important. Like I'm a big fan of Narcos and these shows, right? And their distribution was amazing, right?
Yeah.
Mexico to US, there is a tunnel, and now you can sell anything you want. You want to sell powder, you want to sell vegetables, you can use that tunnel, right? So you build that distribution. It's so important.
Yeah.
And we were in the bootstrapping days. Actually, that worked out really well for us. That we didn't have the money. So we started integrating with other software tools, and we knew that all those other players like HubSpot, Pipedrive, Intercom, all those players are growing companies and they already have customers. So why not just ride the tide and just use their popularity to get popularity for us and make them our sort of banner holders for us, right? So we doubled and tripled down on integrating with hundreds of tools in the early days, and we again bringing in human factor into it. Like I myself, some of our engineers started building relationship with people who are running the marketplaces there. So if Jack is running HubSpot marketplace, I used to ping him like, dude, like we just built this amazing feature, we already given a landing page, a help guide and a video, can you list us on your marketplace? Cool, we got it listed. Then, hey man, we are getting 10 plus, we have 20 new people now, common users now, can we do a webinar together? And after that, 5 10 days after, hey, we just launched a new SMS integration with HubSpot, would you like to sort of put us somewhere? I'll be like, hey, put our competitor somewhere on the top in some list, like why no love for us? And then they did like 3 lists where we were on the top, like so having
think
that human thing.
That I think is so underrated. Okay, I mean,
And it's a
because
moat. It's a moat.
It's a moat.
I know for our first 10-20 integrations, I know everyone who is running the marketplace. So be it hiring, if I have to hire someone for partnership, I know who to hire.
Yeah.
Or even from the just getting a push.
Yeah.
For example, Pipedrive, a CRM company, right? We became one of their founding partners for some of their new products that they built and launched recently. We replaced their own dialer within Pipedrive itself, and that all happened because people know us there, because their relationship. These people helped answered queries from our VCs when they were evaluating our company, right? These people went on calls with our VCs to tell them how amazing Just Call integration is. So we always try to solve problems with money, but it's never that. It will take the human hours. It will take the human emotions to play the actual role. We should never leave the human part of the business. I mean, I always, whenever I write messages to our team members as a whole, I'm like, we are in business of humans. Humans making products, human making, selling, dealing, supporting product, and all those things are like, byproducts.
Yeah.
So we can, and that's the moat.
Yeah. No, I think partnerships, right? Such a, I think, underrated channel, I would say, because a lot of the times when I talk to founders, they think that, hey, I mean, I will hit like X or Y million dollars and then probably think about partnerships, right? I mean, but if you are executing in a space, there's 100% a legacy company, right, that has maybe like 1,000 times more distribution than you, right? It absolutely makes sense to talk to them and perhaps list on their marketplace, or not even the marketplace, just talk to the partnerships guy, right? I remember early days, at the very least, we got a PR release from some SVP at Salesforce. makes a
right?
difference.
Yeah,
It really makes a
yeah,
difference, right? And when we started the podcast, it's funny. Okay, I mean, I cold reached out to some 7 or 8 people from the Apple team on who runs
exactly,
podcasts.
exactly.
Right, we got featured on
See,
the Apple
yeah.
podcast page, right? I mean,
Money is not going to solve that. The
yeah,
VC funding not going to solve that
yeah.
unless you sort of send
No,
those emails.
and so the thing is, like, the funny thing is, like, six of them didn't say anything. Maybe like 3 or 4 connected, and then one person was actually
Yeah,
helpful. Same thing on Spotify
yeah,
also, right? And yeah, I mean, it doesn't cost us anything. Literally, like a few minutes, a few hours is work,
yeah.
and some persistent follow up, right? But in the case of SaaS, right, it's almost having like an extended sales team.
Exactly. For example, affiliate marketing, right?
Yeah,
We have about 700, 800 affiliate partners with us. So the beauty of that is like when you're sleeping, they're selling for you,
yeah,
right? And there's 700, 800 people spread across 40 countries. I mean, there was one affiliate partner who was getting us dentists in Italy. I mean, we would have never spent any single dollar on Google or whatever ads in Italy to target dentists.
right.
There was this partner in Canada. He was getting us all the investor relation teams. We never thought investor relation can also buy our software,
Yeah,
right? And there was this partner in Australia who was getting us a lot of big customers from solar industry from Australia. So no, I think this is one of those things which are like, again, this is one of those investment thinking piece, right? Because this partnership will start slow.
front
And you have
loaded. All your effort is
it's
front
all
loaded.
front loaded. You have to do a lot of effort. You have to wait. You have to be patient, and you have to give a lot of value first, and then sort of expect something. But then the whole snowball effect sort of comes in,
Absolutely.
and it's all compounding. Like you start with 1, then 2, then 4, then 8, and all that stuff happens, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, for example, in our case, affiliate marketing itself generates almost 10% revenue for us. And it's all no effort. I mean, the LTV to CAC on this will be like what, 5:1 because we give 20% commission. So it's the best revenue that we are earning basically.
Amazing.
Right.
Amazing. Yeah. And just to have like a diversified channel for growth,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly.
you're not like bloody playing these LinkedIn's and Google's,
Yeah.
all of those dollars, which I absolutely hate. Okay. I mean, I think so. 2 years back, I set a target for us that, we should reduce our paid campaign to 0.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen, but
Yeah.
that's the way it has to trend, right?
Yeah. I tell you, like, we saved almost $3 million
Wow.
by cutting our paid acquisition spending. Hardly 7% impact on our leads. No impact on our sales.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah, $3 million in the bank.
Crazy.
From $500,000 to, we went from $500,000 of spending to almost $250,000. Nothing changed.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I think we do a lot of these things. I think we do it because we do it, right? Airbnb, for instance, I think in 2021 or sometime they post the IPO. I suppose they decided to cut all paid acquisition. Right?
Yes.
They said we're going to spend all our
brand.
cash on brand.
Yeah.
That's it, right? And they have not seen an impact. And I used to think that okay, maybe it kind of works for an Airbnb type of a company, right? Which is sort of ubiquitous, has spent a lot of money and so on. But yeah, it could also work at a smaller scale.
Yeah.
I think it also forces you to think of other channels, right? And really work your muscle. If you're not spending on paid campaigns that much, and if you don't have that regular inflow of leads, then perhaps you'll do better on your copy on your website.
A lot of debate is happening around the brand word campaigns, right? And I was talking to a CMO at a pretty big company, SaaS company, and they said that they just stopped spending money on the brand words and nothing happened. So do that now. So cut our budget further. Yeah.
Right.
But I think marketing, again, marketing is something I've been making my sort of opinion around marketing. At least looking at the India scene, and you also mentioned that building in India, selling across the world, right? I think marketing is something we haven't played well, even us and all majority of the SaaS companies in India. And I'm sort of figuring out that marketing is nothing but creating a religion. So, for example, in our case, there are 600,000 businesses who fit our ICP, and we just need 30,000 businesses
to swear by you,
to follow my religion, my preachings. Right. And for that, it's something very similar to running an election also. And that's what politicians do. They come up with an opinion to which certain people subscribe and vote for the politician and win the election. You say certain things which some people like, some don't, which is fine. And it is so important to understand that you cannot sell to every single lead which is coming in.
Absolutely.
And this is connected to ops and operations also. Like what lead you are rejecting, what not rejecting.
Yeah.
So all those things are so connected, and unless and until you don't have that mental model or understanding of letting go of things which are not the right ICP for you, that's important.
Yeah.
Creating an opinion around your brand is also important. For example, Just Call. What does Just Call stand for? One of our main products, right? What does Just Call stand for? What is the opinion about, let's say, will AI kill jobs or will it make people richer? We should have an opinion, right? So this is something we are practicing now. Like we're trying to come up with opinion so that we can set aside 30,000-40,000 businesses who subscribe to our opinion. And that's how we'll be, reaching 100 million and above sort of goals. So I just wanted to say a few things about marketing, because that's something been my sort of learning over a period of time.
No, it's definitely interesting, right? I mean, in the early days, you're out to qualify the hell out of everything.
Everyone,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you're going
Sell
to
to
put fight
everyone.
on everything because obviously you spend to
Build so
get
many
those leads.
useless features for non-ICP fits.
Yeah.
I mean, we have done that.
Yeah.
So the faster you realize that, I mean, it's really important. And again, it's one of those things like the way you have to build muscle for investment, understanding what expense and what's investment. Similar things like what's a fit, what's not a fit, is also very important. It's very difficult to let go a lead which may pay you $1,000 MRR in the early days, but you eventually have to build that muscle. Otherwise, it'll be difficult to scale.
Yeah. I feel like as Indians, right? I mean, we've learned how to build, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the last 10 years, I think the single biggest thing that's changed is our product thinking, right? I mean, I think today, if you look at like an Indian-made product versus a global product, I think the UX is absolutely similar, right? In some sense, I mean, ours is superior in some products that I've seen, right? But one thing that we're still learning is to sell and market, right? And that's where I think, building a brand and so on, because on the marketing front, I think we're damn good at acquisition. Like we're really
Very
good at running the
right?
numbers. Yeah, exactly.
It's very mathematical.
Very mathematical.
Yeah.
You have a funnel, you know how much to put in, and so on and so forth, right? But this whole brand thing, right, is key to building $100 million companies, right? Is key to perhaps listing and so on, right? How are you thinking about these branding?
I think if you think about it, like majority of us like are very, as an Indian person, like everyone, most of us are like very humble, kind of shy here and there. Like we are obviously very vocal among ourselves, but on a global level, we are very shy people in general, right? Confidence level also not up there. And that shows up in your marketing. Normally, your marketing should be speaking 3x what the product is doing, right? We do the opposite. We are such great feature factories. We'll have more features than every other single product, but we'll be doing half the marketing. So if product is 1x, we'll be doing 0.5x marketing as that this is what we do. Instead, we should do 3x of what the product is. And this is coming in from your inherent lower confidence. And this is not like, it's just built in our blood. I mean, that's it. There's nothing wrong about it. I mean, this is what it is. So you just have to just realize that okay, I'm doing that, so probably I have to come out a bit more. I have to be a bit more aggressive. I should talk highly of some of my features. I should not talk about features actually. I should talk about solutions. That's where the international market and the India products differ. We always talk about features. We never talk about solutions. And to some extent, it's also a difference of we never grew up there, so we don't understand much of their sort of the way they buy. In India, we've been like always been cost conscious and been measuring features. So it's our upbringing, I would say. But there's so much material online available now. You just have to realize what you're missing and just fix that. So you can start with talking more about and in a big manner about your features. I think that's a very good start. Start giving some big names. I mean, that's some of the hacks I'm talking about. Like if you're doing social media scheduling or something, like you can talk about like influence master or something like, grow your influence index by automating your social publications, whatever. Like, like make it sound bigger than what it is. Because that's happening in the world. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think we can start with that practice, and probably that's how we can sort of grow on top of it.
No, I think you hit it on the head, right? Which is our intrinsics are so like, okay, don't
Subdued.
speak too much,
Yeah.
be a little humble,
Yeah.
let your work speak for itself, so on and so forth, right? But a whole lot of people won't even discover you if you don't like stand on the rooftops and shout,
Most
right?
of us even don't know how to reply when someone compliments you. Right? If I tell you
Yeah,
like, hey, your shirt is good, you won't have the answer.
yeah, yeah,
So you have to learn that.
yeah. Um, the other interesting facet about SaaS Labs is that you've picked the SMB market, right? You've
Yeah.
picked this market which is easy to acquire, but also kind of easy to churn as
Churn. Yeah.
well, right? And it's a sort of a double-edged sword. You can see them coming in through the funnel and then,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
easily leaving after 3 months or 6 months. And sometimes,
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of effort that goes into converting from free to paid and so on and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is your experience on building for this whole SMB persona, right?
Yeah.
And you've not been tempted to sort of go to mid-market enterprise as such?
Yeah. No, I mean to some extent, like okay, so SMB, why SMB happened for the first reason, right? Like when I moved to US for the first time, like my couple of learnings were like, firstly, like people pay for software. That was so amazing. I being a programmer myself, like, oh wow, this is so amazing. The second one was like SMBs are very underloved, and also the agents for whom we are building our products, the sales and support agents, they're also very underloved. So it actually became like a mission for us, like. And it became like from day one we are talking about it, like this will be the first line in our IPO prospectus that SMBs and mid-market SMBs and the agents are underloved and underserved, and we are solving for that. So that became a mission for us, right? Uh, and so in our market, 70% of the whole dollar is actually in SMB and mid-market. It's a difficult problem to solve from the economic side for the US folks or the European folks, but that's where the India unfair advantage comes in. I'm not talking about the arbitrage of the wage gap. I'm actually talking about the speed at which we execute. Obviously, there's arbitrage on the support cost, uh, but some of the arbitrage on building product has sort of minimized. Like it's not that much, given the salaries, how the salaries have gone up. It's more about the speed of execution. Um, so I think the urge is fine, and it will happen. But you cannot sublime from selling to very small business to enterprise. I feel it's a function of maturity of the business and the product. We can, for example, our product can still handle bigger customers, but we don't land them big yet. So a lot of customers started with like 2 seats or 3 seats with us, and now they're 2,000 seats with us. They're enterprisey sort of customers for us, right? But frankly, it also comes from the founder's mindset also. Like I never liked. I was always an introvert programmer who loved it when people used your product without even talking to you, right? Or they paid on the PayPal right away without even talking to you, or just email, not a phone call. So maybe it comes from there, and maybe it will change eventually with the maturity of the business. I think till $100 million to $150 million, I think we can still pull off with our SMBs, both small and medium, by the way. So I think we have enough depth in our market where we can pull off this game till 150 million easily. I give you the equation for 100 million, which is totally doable. We are halfway almost there, right? From the agent's point of view. Beyond that, I mean, it's a function of time.
Yeah. No, I think, if you look at HubSpot, for example, right? I mean, they're also enterprise right now.
Freshworks, yeah.
But our Freshworks tending towards mid-market at least, right? I personally feel that you don't start off in the enterprise, right? I mean, even if you do sell to large organizations, maybe the scope of problem that you're solving on day one is very small, right? You can't go and like say that I'm going to replace your kitchen sink.
Plus, I don't come with an unfair advantage here, like because I never worked somewhere. I never worked any. This is the biggest company I've ever worked in, right? So I mean, obviously, 3 months I worked somewhere else, which was bigger, but that doesn't count. I was just an analyst.
Right.
Yeah.
Now your team is spread across multiple different continents, geographies, etc. Right? What are your thoughts on bringing all of these people together, motivating them through towards a common mission, and this thing they call culture, right? I mean, very different in India versus very different in Poland, as you would have realized. Very different in US. In fact, I mean, different in Noida versus Bangalore.
100%.
100%. Right? So. how do you sort of get all of these very different personalities, running towards a common goal,
Yeah.
leverage each person's intrinsics, right?
Hmm.
And yet, sort of have an idea of what SaaS Labs is.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, I mean, normally in any of our town halls or offsites, I normally show them a picture of a boat, people rowing a boat. And that's where it starts from. Like, I'm like, if you have to win, we have to row our boat in the same direction. That's where it starts, like very basic theory stuff, right? I think what really matters is like your internal stories, your company stories should remain alive forever. So there, for every single year, we have a lot of stories. Like 2016, we were on the verge of closing down, and then we sort of figured from there, and we sort of started doing well. So there's a story there. Everyone knows about that story. Every new person who comes in get to hear that story every time. Every team has different stories of wins, losses, whatever. So I think storytelling is very important. Uh, and that's CEO's function also, like be it fundraising, be it selling, storytelling is very important. Over communication is very important. Communicate. What kind of person you are, I think that's also important, like how you're connecting. So if you have connected really well with your first 10, 20, 30 people, and you gave them, they grew with you, right? So they have to carry forward the same. So keep in touch with those 30, 40 people. Obviously, keep in touch with new people as well. But keep on asking them also, like, dude, like, you have to take this culture forward. Um, Spend time with them. I think you cannot be like, hey, I'm a CEO, so I won't talk to anyone. Have a very open door sort of policy. Now, I mean, during COVID, we had open chat policy. Like, so when people start relating to you that, okay, this person is actually very motivated about the mission, storytelling is on point. We have not just saying stories, we have also done that. Award winning. We have won a lot of awards on fastest growing companies XYZ. That also helps a lot. So it's a combination of that. The one thing is like, um, okay, so what people really like about SaaSLabs, I can probably that will answer the question better. Um, we focus a lot on independence of thinking, and like anyone can come with ideas. I think that's really important. We talk about the 1% growth. I mean, it's a simple compound interest formula. Like you grow 1%, you're 37x better in a year. So focus a lot on that. We focus a lot on multi-functional learning. So if an engineer doesn't mean that you just have to code, you also have to understand the marketing piece also. Like if you're interested. Uh, and also so I remember one of our engineers, when we were hiring this person from a campus recruitment, this person asked me a really good question. He's still with us 5-6 years now. He asked me this question like, who will review my work, right? And the answer was like, our customers will review your work. You're a fresher, but you will be on the field day one, and your customer's gonna review your work. And that guy obviously picked us as a company and still with us for the last 6 years. And that's what I realized, that just by becoming very close to our customers, the young folks, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year old sort of folks in our company, they just love that they're getting the challenges. They're not sitting on the bench. They're getting actual challenges. They're actually talking to these, for example, people coming from small towns. Just talking to a US person itself is a great thing to talk about during dinner with your family.
Yeah.
I had a chat with Rich White, whatever, like something like that. So I mean, that's like such an amazing thing for, and we started as an underdog story. That also helped. We were like, dude, like bootstrap Noida, but you have to kill these US companies, or you have beat these US companies. It's all storytelling. Um, it should come from inside. It should be sound real, right?
Yeah.
You cannot
Should be
fake it.
authentic.
You cannot fake it.
Yeah. And I think stories are so important, because as you scale, people forget what you did to get that one
Yeah.
big deal, for instance.
Being
Right?
transparent is also very important.
Yeah.
For example, when this whole SVB thing happened last year, March, April, the whole SVB just went away,
Yeah.
and we had all our money there.
Crazy.
It was such a bad weekend for all of us. But the next, on Monday or whatever, Tuesday, I actually wrote a whole post to the whole team telling them that, hey, this happened. And these are kind of the lessons for us. Like, we cannot have a single point of failure. By the way, even the money went away, but we had a plan to be profitable right away. and we already had XYZ debt line, credit line lined up for us. So you should not be worried. Something like that, right? So be very transparent about the screw ups. I think that also helps in building the trust.
Yeah. I mean, it's just wild to me that you can't even take your deposits for granted, right? I mean,
250K only.
happens.
And a lot of parties, man. Like that bonding stuff,
Yeah,
crazy stories comes from there.
absolutely. Um, so 21, 22 was a kind of a different era, I feel,
Yeah.
right? And this post zero interest rate
Yeah.
era that we're living
5%. Yeah.
in, right? I mean, it requires a different set of skills to sort of build a SaaS company now. It's not about raising funding and like the next round and optimizing for the round after that, right? It's about, hey, I mean, how can I build a business capital efficiently, right? And how can I build this forever without an exit in mind as such, right? Can you give some advice on how what founders should do at this point? Some 3-point thing that they should prioritize.
Sure. No, I think firstly is like looking at your costs. Obviously, like a lot of us, like a lot of founders in India, like normally add a lot of. We hire a lot of people actually, like more than we need. So having a good eye on talking about SaaS here only, like thinking about like what's the dollar amount per FTE. I think that's very important, and that also helped us when we were growing as a bootstrap company, and even today. Like so, that's a very good metric for you to be in sort of control of not sort of hiring a lot of people. So I think that's really important. Don't hire for very niche sort of functions if you're a very small company. Secondly, is like figure out like there are a lot of costs happening here and there. Control those costs. It's okay to have a slower growth to start with when you're planning the whole thing, like oh shit, like how to manage my money and all that. For first 2 quarters it's fine to grow slowly and figure out what's the plan is, but then also it's your job to figure out like how to grow faster now without spending much money. Partnership can be one of those examples.
Yeah, key levers.
The other thing is like creating a muscle of, so there are a few things like this kind of mistake I also committed probably in last 2 years, is not thinking about some of the investments which will start generating returns for you in 3, 6, 9 months. So if, for example, if you have to grow to X number per month, let's say if you have to add $3 million a month, new ARR or a quarter, and we are at about, let's say, 1 million today. So there's a delta of 2 million. Like, how will that come? So there'll be certain actions you have to take today so that start giving you results 9 months, 6 months down the line. So do you have those projects, those experiments lined up or not? I think that's also important, because otherwise you'll start missing your numbers. So having that understanding and the planning is also really important. Make sure you never run out of money. Like that's super important. Make sure you're parking your money. It's not sitting idle in a bank. That's so important. Like on a 40 million, if for example in our case, like we're getting 5%, like that's again, that money can be routed to R&D.
Yeah.
Without cost, right? So I talked to a lot of founders. I mean, the money's in the bank only. Like, dude, what's wrong? So make most of that.
Right.
Figure out ways to sort of make money.
Awesome. All right, getting to perhaps the end of the podcast. At every leg of the journey, right, I feel like the founder has to kind of reinvent themselves for the next leg and the leg afterwards, right? Maybe when you started out, you were an engineer, a builder. You had to pick up all of this nuances on the ops side of things and the finance side of things, right? Here, as of now, what are you learning for yourself to be prepared for that next leg of journey?
Yeah, so I think some of those things I already talked about, which is like your ramp up sort of investments. Like my job today should be like, what will the business be at after 1 year, 2 year, and 5 year? I should be working on the top of the funnel of the business. Like, how can I increase my time? How can I increase more opportunities for us? How can I increase leads for us? It's not in the marketing terms, but it's just that opportunity wise. How can I
unlock opportunities?
Unlock opportunities for us, right? From the acquisition point of view, from the strategy point of view. What are some of the places where we are not investing money? Because now my job is to invest money, basically, right? How are you doing on the AI piece? Like AI is both a risk and an opportunity for us. Are we under investing there or over investing or whatever? right? So my job
On
now
that
is
note, right?
yeah,
What are your thoughts on the fact? I mean, that a lot of people believe that AI will kill SaaS. I mean, I have a sort of a difference of opinion on that front.
yeah,
But a lot of people do believe that AI will kill SaaS, right? And that SaaS will get commoditized completely. And of course, I mean, the kind of margins that we've seen before will get like increasingly difficult to garner going forward, right?
yeah.
So this whole AI SaaS piece, if you
Yeah.
can like give some comments on that.
No, AI will take the place of SaaS, but it will be still consumed the same manner, like through these products only. Like for example, Just Call will become Just Call AI. It will still be doing the same majority of the same stuff. I think what's fundamentally what's gonna change is the pricing model of SaaS. Like subscription will probably go away to large extent. It'll be rather because SaaS was always about productivity and AI is all about selling the work itself, right? So that's the fundamental difference. So am I making my agent 20% better, or I'm just making an agent? That's the difference, right? Or I'm making a partial agent for myself. So it's selling the work. So when you're selling the work, you're getting a portion of that work, right? SaaS was always about getting a portion of the outcome I'm creating, the productivity increase. So I used to get a 10% portion of that as a subscription fees. AI is actually doing the work. So I should get the wage that AI is doing, that work. So that fundamental model, pricing model will change. It will be, I mean, I think you've already seen a lot of companies doing that. For example, Intercom is doing a 99 cent per successfully resolved query or something like that. So a lot of these Zapier changed their pricing model. They brought in tasks as the, I think, variable. So I think pricing model will change for sure. So a lot of SaaS companies will have to sort of move there if they're implementing AI. The way they consume the product will also change. Like it'll be more UX driven, more UI less. Uh, Chat, I'm not sure like how much will that be adopted in a enterprise level, sort of business level point of view. But I think fundamentally, less pages, less sections, more query based. Basically the apps will become smaller. They won't be like 20 pages settings page and change password page. It'll be slightly more easier to consume a SaaS app. I think. But I still have doubts around the proper enterprise adoption of AI is if that's close yet, because of the whole compliance issues. But that also gives two opportunities in the market to build businesses. One is the whole compliance around AI, like AI ethics can also be one of those things. You have an API that can wrap around the outcomes of AI. That can be a great business if someone wants to make 50, 60 crores today, like just build that and flip the company. Or there are a lot of LLM ops products which are already in the market.
So Chamath tweeted this sometime back, right?
Yeah.
He's saying that he's starting something called 80/90,
Yeah.
where he'll build 80% of the features of that enterprise
90%
SaaS product
cheaper.
that you're using at 90% less,
Yeah.
right? But I feel like the way enterprises consume software is not like that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the last 20% of features is what takes a lot of the time, right? I mean, they don't buy off the shelf, and there's a whole lot of solutioning consulting that one has to do to serve the outcomes, right? I mean, they don't buy basis features.
Yeah.
So I personally feel, yes, I mean, it's a trend, obviously, like we're seeing that more and more of the code will be AI enabled. If we're probably not shipping production ready code at this point of time, but obviously the developers' prominence in shipping some of these things will get less and less, right? But I think we will still evolve to different pricing models, as you mentioned, but SaaS as itself will not like go away tomorrow, right? I mean,
No, I think if you're evolving with the trend, then obviously it'll go away. But I still feel like the adoption of the whole AI or even the request of AI is still pretty far away from the customer base point of view, right? I think so. What's really important is like you start embedding AI into your product
exactly.
rather than selling it as a separate unit altogether. I mean, we did that mistake last year. Like we were just selling separate IQ as an offering, but now it's embedded in the business, in the product itself. It's one of those things like when Amazon sort of came out, they were like, hey, this is an internet commerce company. Now no one talks about internet. Similarly, AI will, as a word, will sort of go away.
Yeah.
That'll become natural. Like for example, SaaS, like it's a cloud-based thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a cloud-based software.
Yeah.
The cloud-based thing went away. It just became SaaS.
Yeah.
Similarly, AI will go away because that's very obvious.
Yeah. Just as everything is internet powered and everything is SaaS powered,
Exactly.
it will become AI powered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. I know you're a voracious reader, right? So if I were to ask you, like, recommend some books for our audience, what are your top recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a programmer kind of person, became CEO and founder, for whom like running a team or operations is a pain, I think Amp It Up is a really nice book. Frank Slootman,
Yeah.
that was like,
The snowflake guy.
yes.
Yeah.
So that gave me the pump, like, because uh, operating a business is not easy when you have like people more experienced than you in the business running the show for you and all that stuff. So I think Amp It Up will give you really amp you up, right? Basically, right? Another interesting book I read, and that was again a game changer for me from the building as a becoming as a leader, or as a CEO, was Build to Sell. Although I didn't want to build to sell, but that book's really helped me, because that book talks about how to not work in the business but on the business. So this is something we just chatted earlier, which is like, how can you make sure that the business doesn't require you? Because only then you'll have free time to think about the next game.
Yeah.
To increase your time and XYZ and opportunities for you. So it's really important that you're not working on the bottom of the funnel, you're working on the top of the funnel. That's really important. So that book was a real game changer. And the third one would be like, once you have about 30, 40, 100 people team, 5 dysfunctions of team. I think that's a really good book that will help you manage your leadership better, and they'll further manage people better. So I think these 3 books definitely are good enough to be a good, decent CEO.
Hey, this was an awesome chat, Gaurav. Plenty of, I think, insights that I certainly will be reflecting upon, and useful for anyone who wants to build and scale a SaaS business. So thanks so much for making time for us.
Thanks for having me, man. It's always fun. Yeah.
Super. All right, folks. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Startup Operator. I'll see you on another one. If you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all of the other great stuff. Right. So see you soon.